That better, Councilman Gilbert?
Yes, I believe so.
Well, good.
I like that background, Ken.
Thank you. I was rather partial to that for the conversation today.
Way to support our employees.
That's our crew. That's our crew.
All right. Ken, if you
I've got it.
you got the stick, let's go ahead and go live.
We are live, sir.
All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Tuesday, January the 26th special strategic planning meeting. I now call this meeting to order. We have this afternoon a special session of our Budget and Finance Committee. And so at this time, I'm going to turn the chair over to Councilwoman Burrs to chair this meeting.
And Mr. Chairman, before you do, Councilman Mitchell had his hand up. I don't know if that was pre-meeting.
Yeah, I just noticed his hand.
Well, I'd like for Councilperson Burrs to start the meeting, but I'd like to say something before we go into the district rundown.
That's fine. I got that, Jerry. So call together the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. Can I have a motion on the minutes, please?
So moved.
Thank you. I assume no one's opposed. So let me just set the scene a little bit, and then I'll turn it over to Councilman Mitchell. Several weeks ago, the city gave a report on their public input meeting, and two things happened as a result of that. And I'm quoting, a number of you felt that the public input findings were skewed and not representative of your respective districts. And rather than have individual meetings with administration, you asked for a meeting of the whole. And that's the purpose of the meeting today. That's as far as we got. My intention is for this to be the last meeting relative to this stage of budget input. As I wrote to you, from here on out, feel free, obviously, to talk individually with administration. And I'm going to call on Councilperson Mitchell now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was thinking this is potentially the beginning of some form of good process in the future. And it would be my suggestion, I'm going to make it in the form of a motion, that not only do we turn our work over to the current administration, but we would, and I'd like to get a consensus or something on this, that we would also make this work available and turn it over to the incoming council and new mayor. And that's
I'll second that.
Yeah, and just for my 2 cents, I fully agree with that. That's why it's in writing, and hopefully some of them, and I know the RPA as well, are listening today. So we have a motion on the floor with a proper second. Is there any opposition? You know what, Phil, do you want to take a vote on this or a consensus? This is a public meeting. Let's take a vote.
Sure, take a vote.
Yeah, okay. Madam Clerk?
Yes. Councilman Oglesby,
Yes.
Councilman Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilman Ledford, yes, Councilman Gilbert,
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod,
Yes.
Councilwoman Burrs,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Henderson.
Yes.
That's 8 yeses.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a great idea, Councilman, and thank you very much. So this is a public meeting, and we're going over exactly what you said, your additions or your comments relative to the public forums that administration reported on. I think we'll just do this by district. Wait a minute. Councilman Mitchell, I know you had some other things to do. Do you want to go first, or do you have time for us to start with District 1?
No, District 1 will be fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Chairman Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And
Excuse me, Nicole, would you put it up, please, to share? Sorry, Mr. Chair.
no problem.
Madam Chair, just before we get started, did you want to remind everybody about the 10-minute clock and how that was going to work?
Yes, thank you, Councilman. You each have 10 minutes or up to 10 minutes for your presentation. As we said earlier, we'll have full discussion afterwards, and Councilman Smith will be doing timing. And there goes our presentation again. Okay. All right. Now, if you would, Chair Henderson.
Okay, Nicole, if you would pull up the District 1 concerns. There we go. So in District 1, road paving, sidewalks continues to be the #1 priority for my district. And let me just acknowledge the increase in paving that this administration has worked with this council on. When I took office in 2013, we were spending $1.7 million in paving, woefully underfunded. But I do feel like we've made some progress. We have been able to pave some roads in my district that have been a big concern for many years. So I do want to thank the administration for working with council on that. I think to determine just exactly how much paving dollars we need, I think we need to develop an asset management plan to be able to come up with a reasonable figure that we can address paving concerns long term. The next thing on my list was employee pay, sworn and non-sworn. And listen, we need to ensure that all of our employees are paid a wage that they can support their families. In order to be able to recruit and retain talent in our fire department and in our police department, we are going to have to address employee pay. Many times we train our police, we train our firefighters, and then they find work somewhere else at a higher pay. I think it's incumbent on us to put a priority on increasing our employee pay. Madam Clerk, I think you got Council District 2 on there. I'm happy to go over his concerns as well. But I do think that we need to make employee pay a priority in this next budget. And the third thing that I would say, and I think if we do these 3 things in this next budget and we do them well, I think we'll be in a great place, is workforce development. And I think the best way to attract business in Chattanooga is by offering a deep talent pool. We're going to have to be able to address the needs that these companies have in terms of a labor force. And I think, I know there's going to be an educational opportunity in the trades field that we need to make an investment in. And I think that that's something that would fall under our capital budget. But I think those opportunities are coming in this next administration, and we need to take advantage of these educational opportunities that's going to be presented to us. Madam Chair, that's really all that I have. I think if we do these 3, I believe we're going to be making some real progress in Chattanooga.
Thank you very much, Councilman Henderson. District 2.
Go ahead, Councilman Henderson. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we're going to find some common themes here as we go through these, which was actually exciting to me. But upkeep of streets and sidewalks, I think that's going to be a recurring theme. I just put out there, but I do like the idea of an asset management program to try to get us we're in a better place. But a permanent percentage of budget ordinance should be considered for improved upkeep and additions. I think that would, I think Councilman Henderson's might be a carrot. This might be a little bit of a stick. And if the future council doesn't want to go this route, I understand, but I'm trying to get to a point where it's understood in the minds of office holders that this probably is job number one for us, and not a glitter or glamour sort of thing that if we can find some extra dollars, we throw it at it. If we can't, we keep doing other things. So I think coming up with a way to do that for the next council and mayor would be great. Speed calming efforts in neighborhoods. I know that speed humps, bumps, whatever you want to call them, are very controversial, but I think that finding ways to slow people down in the neighborhoods when they're in vehicles would be something that's obviously creates safer streets. On growing economy, these sort of general approaches, but when I say increased business recruitment, I believe that we have to continue to do a good job and possibly even a better job on recruitment. I know that in the past, we've done a lot of efforts towards major employers. I'm not so sure that we shouldn't supplement that with some small business recruitment. And then of course, small and minority business incentives would go along with that. Increased and more efficient public transportation. I think Councilperson Burrs has been a champion of this, and I'm not going to spend more time on it because she might want to address it in more detail. Increased workforce training, there it is again already, and development. I just had an idea of an apprenticeship program for future city employees or beginning city employees, something that, we need a deep pool in the whole community, in the whole city of Chattanooga. I would totally agree with Councilman Henderson, but I think that really starts within the city as it relates to us and coming up with ways to assure better trained employees as well as well-paid employees. I know those have been problems in the past for us, and create a more coordinated and better funding approach to affordable housing. It's a huge problem, but that creates huge opportunities. But I think throwing dollar amounts, and this may sound a little crazy, but throwing $1 million here and $1 million there at it is not going to get us anywhere. So we really got to come up with an approach that the next council and mayor can say that we're really putting, a stick in the sand, so to speak, that says we're going to do something about this. I've heard a lot of talk about it over the last 8 years, but other than just small funded things, I haven't really seen much. Okay, next slide, please. Stronger neighborhoods. I think we need to get more transparency in our planning and development groups. Hello, Regional Planning Agency. I hear you were listening. I really think that at times I've seen things that have been created as workarounds. I think that the planning agency is trying to address that right now. But what that leads to is lack of transparency and lack of knowledge on the part of folks that are trying to utilize that department to do the right thing. So also the same thing with code enforcement. I had to put steep slopes in there. Forgive me. Still holding out hopes against hopes that we will have something before April. A partnership with the community addressing homelessness. Again, this is a whole community problem. And I think it's become, since the pandemic, more so a community-wide problem. I think you can't find a district in the city that does not have locations where the homeless are, staking out ground and trying to find a way in this city, in this world. And I think we're going to have to really do more with the whole community in trying to address this. That's all I'll say about that right now. More emphasis on standards for upkeep and improvement of parks. I guess this is my roots coming in. Roots, I like that. But I think we need to find a way. I know that at one point we were going to create another master plan for parks and greenways. I know the council felt we had better things to do with our money at the time, but I think with a new council and a new mayor, I think that ought to be looked at seriously for, I don't think, and I think the employees have done a great job in Public Works when the Parks Department was incorporated into Public Works. But I think we need to address standards for upkeep and improvements in parks. It's been quite a while since we've put much resource into improving or creating parks. And I see where things are coming around, potential Mountain Creek area. I mean, there's a couple of different park opportunities we have. I'm a little hesitant to go down that on a one-by-one basis. I would like to see something that says we've got an updated plan, and now let's go fill in the gaps where we need new parks or improved parks. And smarter students and stronger families, updated facilities and increased resources for YFD. I think that they made great strides while I've been here on the council. And I think that there's more to go and more to do. And I think that the incoming council and the next mayor wants to make sure that they are properly resourced and have some of the best people we can have there to make that work. And of course, increase early childhood learning as well as affordable childcare. The city's made great steps. We know it's very expensive to early childhood learning. We know that it is, we need to find out ways to do it in a good way, but also in a way that will be affordable. And now when I say affordable childcare, I think, again, everybody has seen what the pandemic has done for our female workforce, not only in Chattanooga and the whole country. And I think that with what's happening, I think that we need to come up with a plan that makes it affordable to provide quality childcare that has possibly a learning component with it, to be able to help us climb out of this problem that we're in as it relates to our very reliable female workforce. Usually very reliable right now. They're being reliable to their families. Who could blame them? And with that, seeing how I'm not going to get an opportunity to vote on another budget, I'm going to yield the rest of my time, and let's move on. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Wow, Jerry, you made my life easy. I agree with all of that. Thank you very much. Vice Chair Savitt.
Now you know why I just kind of said ditto after I saw what Councilman Mitchell was putting in here. Much of what Councilman Mitchell has brought up is definitely concerns that I've heard from my district as well. And let me back up just for 1 second, Madam Chair, and to say that the information that, at least for myself, that I'm speaking of, I know I'm focused just on safer streets at this point. That is the predominant message that I hear from my constituents when they're calling me, emailing me, texting me. Constant communication with the people I represent is where I get the information for what I think is most important in my district. This isn't from online surveys and that type of thing. These are people that live in my district that have contacted me, that I have had conversations with, that I have met with, and the issues, those I consider to be the most important issues in my district are the ones that people are calling me about. So that said, much again of what Councilman Mitchell stressed and mentioned, I hear as well. The focus for District 3 predominantly that I'm hearing about is paving. It's something that we've screamed about for 8 years. As Councilman Henderson said, with what the budget was when we first came into office at 1.3, now at 8, we're over 4 times where we were. And that was a goal that several of us set 8 years ago. And we've gotten a long way. Thanks for the administration for working with us on that. But over those 8 years, other roads have continued to decline. So it's still somewhat of a drop in the bucket for a lot of our roadways that we continue to hear from a lot of citizens about. We definitely need to be sure that we are putting that money into paving every year, and as much as we possibly can. This is what tax dollars are for, is for the infrastructure to support the people that live here. And we need to make sure that we're not forgetting that as well. So that's not just streets, but it is sidewalks. I appreciated that notation in there as well. And then I also focused on the speed calming. A lot of what I've heard over the last, probably even as recent as the last 6 and 7 months, is a lot of speeding in neighborhoods. And because we don't have officers sitting around doing nothing that can sit there and watch for the occasional speeder, it seems like there is nothing that we're doing. And it is almost impossible to get speed humps and other speed calming set up in neighborhoods. I don't know why, but it is. Signage is the same thing. It's hard to get any kind of signage to let people know to be slowing down. I've got neighborhoods that are putting up their own signage because they're tired of waiting for it to be done officially. Things like that, we shouldn't expect our residents to be taken care of. That's an infrastructure issue for the city of Chattanooga to address. And it's not being addressed to the satisfaction of a lot of my constituents and a lot of my neighborhoods. So that's where I get a good portion of my calls. One other thing that I've had a whole lot of lately is trash. I heard from 4 people, different people, since I sent this in, and that's why it's not on here. And one, I think several council members, if not all of them, were copied on from a local business person that said, he feels it's more like the trashy city than the scenic city nowadays. And that's not something that's shared only by one person. And that's a shame. And we should never, ever be faced with that kind of scrutiny, especially by people that are bringing businesses to the city. So, there's a number of essential services like that we need to make sure that we're maintaining our focus on. And I'm not hearing those things when we hear surveys. I don't know why, but these are the things that people that I know personally live in my district are concerned about and are bringing to my attention. And going back to Councilman Mitchell's point on the permanent percentage of the budget, he and I have been talking about this for years. We've been bringing it up around budget time for years. So of course it's still on my list. And Councilman, I know you're not going to be voting on another budget, but you do have time to vote on an ordinance to make this part of the next budget. I'm just saying, if you're looking for a second, I'm more than happy to be a part of that. So you have time to, you still have time to impact things, sir.
Yeah, I like the way you talk. All right.
All right. Madam Chair, that is all I have for this moment. Thank you.
That was terrific, Ken. Thank you very, very much. District 4.
Thank you, Madam Chair. After this presentation was made last week and comments that I made were, I hope, relayed and construed as passionate, because they are. And it's because I felt that the process that was used left out a tremendous amount of residents' input from District 4. So you can read my slide. I want to reiterate what Councilman Smith and Mitchell, or Vice Chairman Smith and Mitchell said. We are, if you're asking where this information comes from, well, it's easy. We get a lot of feedback, Madam Chair. We get hundreds and hundreds of emails. My phone is constantly ringing. And the emails are the best way to reach me, by the way, if you're watching this in District 4. I love to answer emails at 6, 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. And all through the day. But this information is based on feedback and data collected over the last 4 years. In our district, we've held over 10 joint city and community meetings with thousands of residents in attendance. That's a lot of feedback. That's a lot of opinions shared. These are people who live in the district, people of all ages, not just those tech savvy. I spend a lot of time talking to my neighborhood associations. I'm in constant contact with about a dozen of them who have my personal cell phone number and call me all the time. So I know what their districts or their neighborhoods are saying. I know what they're feeling. So the items that we're gonna talk about in just a few minutes, I want people to understand, including the next administration. And I hope there are some people out there running for mayor that are watching this. I know there are 2 of them who are watching this because they're here. But, every year, the Office of Internal Audit does a community survey, which is a pretty good random sampling. You can read my slide. I'm not going to outline that for you. But it does a really good job at randomly selecting scientifically, not just people who are savvy with Zoom. A lot of my folks don't even know what Zoom means. It's important to realize when you're going through this budgeting process, and I would like to also add that we hear from as many different opinions as possible. Now, I love what Councilman Mitchell did earlier. Is why I jumped on that opportunity to second it. And I think that we should, in this process, Madam Chair, should be a part of the budget process going forward permanently. I think this is an incredible, incredible opportunity for citizens to have an input through this process. And I would encourage that this become part of the budgeting process going forward, however we need to do that. So let's start with Safer Street. Next slide, please. Start with Safer Streets. What's interesting when I was going through this is this work was done independently. We all did this within our own districts. And it's not just what did we do in the last 2 weeks gathering information. For a lot of us, this is 4 years of collective data. These are conversations that we've had one-on-one pre-COVID. And this is important to realize that it's not just directed at a certain demographic that knows how to get their way around a computer. These are conversations with all different opinions and different variations. And I think it's what we have to say as district representatives is going to bring a truer representation of district priorities when it comes to the budget. So Safer Streets. I see my timer's running out because I can talk about this for a long time. You're going to see a lot of commonalities. I think is very interesting, as pointed out earlier. Our road paving has increased. Thank you, administration, for listening to this council. That's a huge difference. In my district alone, we saw 350% increase in paving during my term. And I think that is a great collaboration between the administration and this council. And I do applaud you for working with us on that and making that an issue. It's across the board, I think, one of the most common issues that we have. We're looking at litter now, and I think a lot of that has to do with COVID because of our crews. I've been talking to Bill Payne about solutions. We're working through the COVID, having that many people in a cab and the crews out. So bear with us. I think we're working on that. Councilman Mitchell, I have in my list a TAMP program. You mentioned that earlier. I think it's critical and it's important for the public to know that we have a plan when addressing our road maintenance and improvement. Moving on, stormwater related issues. Although we don't have steep slopes really in District 4, it's incredibly important that we keep moving forward on that, and we are. But flooding and stormwater related issues when it comes to public works, I think we need to give them the tools to address that. These are some of the most frequent concerns that I get from my district. Growing economy, I think we need clear agency expectations. I won't go down that road anymore. I think some of us know what that is. Recruitment of businesses that allow flexibility for expanding and changing business environments. That means attracting businesses to this town through the means that we need to that provide quality jobs with flexibility, because the world is changing and we need to be able to change with it. We definitely need an increase in housing options, and we need to address affordable housing. It is one of our #1 issues that's keeping our city, I think, from acquiring the goals and the levels we need to. Stronger neighborhoods, you're going to see this, I think, across this whole presentation. An increase in public safety and full support of our first responders, hands down, no questions asked. That's a definite priority of District 4. Reinforcing community relationships with CPD. Interesting how the speeding has come up with almost every district. And I think that we need to maintain focus on the full funding and staffing of our first responders, including pay for our city employees, to make sure that we're able to provide the absolute best in retention and recruitment. Stronger students and stronger families. District 4 does not have a YFD center. I have learned the value of YFD centers. We do have our Jack Benson Heritage Park, and we have allocated funds for improvements to that. COVID obviously is playing an impact in what we're able to do this year. I think that strongly District 4 wants to see improvements in budgeting for improvements to the Heritage Park and the Heritage Park House. Heritage Park provides families and organizations with an environment to share in cultural, educational, and community activity. This is a place where we all go to hang out. I love Heritage Park. It's a special place. It's all that we have really in District 4. that we call our community green space. And it's very important that the city and the new mayor coming in understands how important that is. I know I'll make sure they do. Madam Chair, I'm going to stop there. I probably think my time is getting pretty close, but I want to reiterate before the next council members move on. This information you're hearing is from people in our district. It is gathered over time. It is not a quick online poll or a survey conducted in a snapshot in time. Is it 15 people set a course for District 4 in the report, and ambulance service somehow made a priority? I strongly disagree with that process. I think that the thousands of people that I have been able to talk to over the last 4 years will more accurately give a reflection on what our district priorities are. Madam Chair, I yield.
Thank you, Councilman. That was an excellent report. I hope some of you are beginning to see some common threads. I am, and it's something we probably will take a step further in our discussion. Let's go to District 5. Councilman Gilbert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I agree with you that I'm hearing my colleagues say the same exact thing, hearing the same thing that's being spoke about paving and things of that nature. I agree that Chattanooga needs to be more than just downtown. It's all over the city, should be fixed and repaired and have a better life. Like I say, for example, on safer streets, paving is number one. I have had so many people complain about paving. They want more paving. If you pave one road next to them, they have a fit about their road not being paved, but we just have X amount of dollars to do some X amount of work, but we need to increase that. Growing economy, I hope we want to finish the Area 10 plan. Also, that covers District 6 and District 3. There'll be a part of that. I want to finish that soon this year. To provide incentives for businesses to come to District 5. We need to mimic some of the things that did in North Chattanooga. North Chattanooga at one time was house would cost between $30,000 and $40,000. Now it's between $500,000 and more. So we need to start looking at how can we give a sense of businesses to come to our neighborhoods, and how can we clean up our neighborhoods so that they would like to come to our neighborhoods. The other thing is stronger neighborhoods, more police presence. I have had a conversation with a lot of my constituents about having more police presence in our neighborhoods. Get to know the police get to know the community. Affordable housing, the word affordable needs to be affordable. That word, so far to me, in my opinion, the definition is not affordable. A lot of people cannot afford $150,000 homes. We need to look at that and make sure that we can start getting more people to purchase homes, R1s, have more of that inside the neighborhood instead of just apartments, but have ownership so that they can pass on to their generations, that they have something to pass on. Key community clean. I agree. All our communities need to be cleaned up. We have paper, we have brush, we have a lot of things just sitting there that we just need to start cleaning up. That's not a city problem, that's all of our problem. It's not just that expect the city to do all of it, but we need to start ourselves, stop throwing things out the window. We need to start making sure that things are picked up like it's supposed to be. The other thing is program for trade schools. I know that a lot of my colleagues are looking for the same thing for as trade schools, and we've been discussing this for years, but instead of inventing a wheel, we have a lot of places out there now currently that provide education on trade. We need to tap into that. You have independent people, 501(c)(3)s, Impact One, Jerry Hanner's program that we can enhance so that we can start training young people and older people a trade, because trade does work. If a person's not going to a college at the moment and they're not going to military, they need something to make a living, and trade can make that happen. I'm a prime example of that. I think that we need to also look at our own for as the city itself. we have equipment like knuckle boom, bulldozers, garbage trucks that we don't really have a program set aside an area that they can train. If you recall, some city employees come to us saying that they was frightened and scared to train because they train on a regular street. If they make a mistake, hit a power line or hit some kind of mailbox, they're liable. So we need some type of training center for public works and other areas so that they can train properly and they can enhance. And I do believe in increasing the $15 an hour. I do believe in. I believe that we need to start with our employees first before we go to other places and give money to other people. I do believe in that we need to look at early childhood development, look at our own first as Head Start. But I agree with my colleagues. A lot of our comments are the same. And I think working together as a whole, we can accomplish some of these things that we have put on paper. That's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Councilman. That was great. District 6, that's me. I had some of the same feeling that Councilman Ledford had. I feel like that the 14 plus District 6 participants who gave their input at the executive branch's budget review session, they were right. We do need economic development, but we need so much more. And like Councilman Ledford, my responses come from the calls we get to the office, the numerous community meetings, the district meetings, etc. So here's what I've taken away from that. As far as safer streets are concerned, we took a little different approach in our district. Safer streets are more than just paving. I have East Brainerd Road and I have Brainerd Road and some public streets that are state streets as well. And we have an invasion of homeless camps and a lot of nighttime property crime and people walking up and down those streets. And since we don't have sidewalks that we need, there's some danger there. Panhandling, aggressive and passive. That's on our streets. That's on many of my streets, as you've heard me speak about, and that makes my streets unsafe. As many of you said, litter along the streets. That has to do with safety as well, and people throwing things out on the streets. A big one that I've noticed throughout is speed calming on neighborhood streets. Neighbors shouldn't have to go through some big process in order to make sure that people zooming through their streets don't kill their kids, hit their mailboxes, or hit them. Again, we don't have sidewalks. Obviously, streets are safer if they're repaired, particularly the roads and potholes. The biggest one in my area is the completion of the Standiford Gap Bridge repairs. There is still drug activity there. There is still other activity there. And this has been going on since 2016. And as we found out in our area, it's a safety issue as well with, let's just say, the stuff that's going on there. Can you move the screen up, Nicole? Because I can't see. I couldn't see the last one on safe streets. Excuse me. Grant opportunities for sidewalks. We've had a lot of grant opportunities for sidewalks connecting live, work, and play areas. And you're going to see that theme throughout what I'm saying. If you want to increase economic opportunity, if you want people to be safe, they've got to be able to connect to their various areas. And right now they take their lives in their hands. Next slide, please. Growing economy. This is a big one. And several of you have alluded to it. The concept of underserved has changed a lot in the past year. I don't like the idea of just labeling some areas, and I've heard Councilwoman Coonrod speak to that. Some areas as not as okay as other areas, and therefore they are, quote, underserved. You know what? If you don't have sidewalks, if you don't have paved streets, if you don't have adequate housing, and by the way, my district is one of the most diverse in the city. It serves all kinds of people, and yet it's an underserved district because the resources aren't allocated for increased business development and job creation. When you take districts like maybe 4, 5, 6, particularly 6, what you're committing a suicide and saying that, well, because it's certain areas, they're not underserved. Yes, they are underserved. I've heard all my colleagues talk about it. So we need to be a little more equitable about our definition of underserved. I can tell you that areas on the east side of the ridge are very underserved when it comes to the basic necessities they need. As Councilman Mitchell said, public transportation and sidewalk development, we have to be able to connect people. We have to be able to connect them to whether it's their grocery stores, whether it's their work, whatever. And we don't have that. And we need it very much. We can't keep relying on bus route number 4, because I have kids, and Councilman Gilbert has kids at Brainerd that can't take the bus to a job that might be in my district. And so when you're going to do economic development, you have to think about transportation, and you can't use the same old ways of thinking about it. It's not just buses, it's sidewalks, it's bike lanes, stronger neighborhoods. One of the biggest ones I have in my area is code enforcement to protect neighborhood integrity. I think that the city is doing the best it can. However, I think we need to look at different ways that we can, in other words, not blame the code enforcers. Maybe it's the courts. Maybe we don't have enough code enforcement. But we can't throw away the neighborhoods that are the basis of our city. Most of them are older. Many in my area are older, and they fall prey to anybody that wants to come along with a deal. There's not sufficient code enforcement. Again, an inequitable definition of underserved when referring to neighborhood needs. Speed calming on neighborhood streets. We've talked about that. And the impact, I'm getting a lot now of the impact of homeless camps and nighttime property crime and litter on people's ability to have quiet enjoyment of their property and their neighborhood. As far as smarter students and stronger families, I think you need increased resources for YFD functions for children and their families who need educational and nutritional help. A lot of these centers are the backbone of many of our communities. And I think we need to really look at that, because our kids nutritionally and educationally need some help. That goes along with something that I didn't put there. This is a personal feeling of mine. I haven't gotten it from my constituents, but early childhood education and quality, affordable childcare. That comes from the Mayor's Council on Women. And then again, public transportation and sidewalk development to connect people to education, work, play, and to have a healthy environment. Thank you very much. District 7. Councilman Oglesby.
He's muted.
Sorry, I had to unmute. I mimic, as Vice Chairman Smith said, everything that has happened previously. And I think we're off to a good start to formulate a plan, seeing how so many of us have shared interest in how we should budget this moving forward. In District 7, in talking to some of the constituents, and we talk about diversity. In District 7, it's extremely diversity because of the makeup. You have the East Lake, the Alta Parks, and the West Side, but you also have the downtowns and the Main Street areas. So these things are really varied, but all are equally important. In one particular neighborhood, you know, they felt that there need to be more security cameras that was linked to CPD. And many of them felt real comfortable with making that statement to me because they felt value was in it, and it has helped several times prevent potentially extremely dangerous situation. As with my colleagues, we need more sidewalks. And I like the way Councilwoman Burrs put it. You know, it really not only connects within the neighborhood, but it connects us neighborhood to neighborhood, which goes a long way in solidifying us as one city, sharing common causes and making sure that each neighborhood is progressing socially and economically, and sidewalks brings us together. And it also creates safe environments, particularly for our children, women, and some of our seniors that's out there. Street repairs, potholes, that's one that's shared across. I don't necessarily need to go into that, and more street paving, which is another one of those commonality. One of the other things that was pointed out to me was there needs to be a link. There seems to be a disconnect in the pothole repair and in street paving. And sometimes it's the horse before the cart, or the cart before the horse. And they think, and they have shared with me, those that have been around and has certain expertise in this, that this needs to be a coordinated effort. And from my perspective, and has shared particularly with Councilman Mitchell, is, you know, there needs to be a comprehensive plan to make sure that we're staying on top of this and we're addressing the immediate needs, the future needs, but we're also capturing what has not been done. So it's going to have to be a real strategic effort and a real strategic plan to address those three entities at one time, but it has to happen. Speed common in our neighborhoods. So many of our neighborhoods have kids that's constantly running around, and sometimes across the streets. And a couple of my neighborhoods say that they have been real fearful lately of some kid being hit, or some person, and some irresponsible driver destroying property. So street common is another thing. I don't have to go. We've all addressed that homeless camp situation. It seems to be growing, and it seems to be mobile, because once you get a situation where you can clamp down on one camp, and I'm not saying that negatively clamping down, they pack up and move to another area. So we really, really need to look at that and how we solve this situation, which you may not be able to solve it completely, but surely there's something we can do. Because I was just visiting a couple of camps last week, and they're really, really great people. And some of them are in transition from where they were, and they got to this point through circumstances that was in it that they couldn't avoid, particularly going through this pandemic. So we really, really need to look at that from a safety and a health and welfare standpoint, because many of these camps are extremely unhealthy, and that's just not good for the constituents, and it's just not good for our city. We'll move now to growing economy, and once again, we're talking about small business growth and development. And as we come out of this pandemic, we've lost so many. At the same time, there's an opportunity to expand on that and get that back on track, because in essence, small business is what drives our city. So we need to make sure that there's training programs and educational programs and other support campaigns to help with our small business growth and support. And it needs to be across the board throughout our city. Each of our districts need this for us to really be strong. And we need to make sure that we budget and come up with a plan to address that. Once again, increase public transportation. That goes for itself. A lot of times people can't get to where they need to go to shop and to places of employment. And if there is service, we have to look at the frequency of those services. So that's something that we're going to need to address in relationship to providing public safety. I was given a story of a lady the other day that said she had to take 3 buses first to get to her where her child is in daycare, and then she had to catch a bus to work. And that really touched me very deeply, because I can understand that situation, and it breaks me up just thinking about it. But we really, really need to look at efficient accessibility to transportation. Job training programs, we've heard that in several of our presentations. So we really need to continue to focus on job training programs and career development programs. Youth employment. One of the a group of constituents that I had spoke with said they would love to see a really robust summer employment program. And I think that's a good idea, because some employment begins to teach kids discipline, and it begins to teach them characteristics to be successful in jobs as they grow to get permanent employment. And it also, in a discussion, was a good internship type program during the summer that they can work with various city departments as a prelude to probably those that doesn't choose to go on to other educational opportunities through youth and summer employment programs through our city can go a long way in really restocking the employees in our city. Because I know that in talking to many of our city departments, we have a number of city employees that are on the verge of retirement. And we need to make sure that, you know, there's a system in place to replace those employments, although you can't really replace the years of experience, but it goes a long way in doing that. And if we can move on to the next slide, please. Stronger neighborhoods, blighted property and abandoned houses. That is something that has been one of the topics of discussion in my district. And there's a real concern that a lot of that is linked to code enforcement, and a lot of it is linked to stronger neighborhood association. And it's also linked to us making sure that there's a plan and resources in place, and that when we go to code enforcement, that it's about bettering the neighborhood and not punitive. So those two things in and of itself really concerns our communities, because one thing that I've seen in a couple of programs we've done in District 7, once we clean up a street or a community, it goes a long way in instilling pride, and it goes a long way in empowerment to help make sure those communities stay clean and stay safe. Litter on the streets all over the place. So there's a big concern with that. And that's another thing which I addressed a few minutes ago with more bus service. And then the need for affordable housing. And through rehabilitating some of our blighted properties and retooling our abandoned house can go a long way with that, because there's opportunities for affordable housing that exist in our neighborhoods. All we need to do is clean them up, make them energy efficient, and making sure that neighborhoods around it, houses around it are in compliance. Another thing about cultural activities, some of the neighborhoods wanted to see more like festivals and other type of events that bring people together. And they also brought up the fact that it can create inter-neighborhood interaction, so we can begin to grow and interact with each other, no matter what neighborhood we're in and what district we live in. Now I'll move on to smarter students. There was a call for more sports activities in our YFD centers. They felt that along with the educational program, there needs to be some physical activities and team building kind of activity that goes on in our YFD Center. And it goes down to point 2, the educational programs in our YFD Center, with the cornerstone being early childhood education. It's extremely essential. And I've always said that when they bring up the fact that the city is not in the educational business, that couldn't be further from the truth than anything, because there's an opportunity here for the city to have programs from birth through 1st grade, so that when kids get to the 1st grade, they already have some literacy talent to move forward, versus waiting till they get to the 2nd and 3rd grade and determining that's a problem. And that's an early childhood educational program is an excellent opportunity to partner with the Hamilton County Department of Education to make sure that the things that we're doing in our YFD Center links with what's going on in our educational system. Now, I know that can be a challenge, but it's a challenge that's worthwhile, because we're dealing with the literacy of our children. They need to have these so they're able to be successful when they get to the 1st grade, and when they get to the 3rd grade, they're on task and ready to move on. And then lastly, is the upgrade of our YFD facilities. There really need to be some sort of plan put in place on how we're going to address this. And there's, there just simply needs to be a plan. And that's really all I have as it relates to what's going on in District 7.
That was great. And you were just out of time, so I was going to have to call time. You were great.
I saw the birds look.
You saw the birds look like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't see Councilman Byrd here. Go ahead and pull up District 8. So Councilman Byrd offered this information, which you've already seen. And he's saying the same thing that a lot of you have said, and that he agrees with what we're coming up with. And one of the things that came up that we've only mentioned briefly, but there's been a lot of discussion about, and that is creating a budget system that better measures impact. And I think the example was, you may bring so many kids into a reading program, and you may tout all the things that were happening with the reading program, but at the end, can the kids read? And I've heard Councilman Henderson talk about that. So it's not so much the numbers, it's what the impact is. Did people get better nutrition? Do they now know how to read? Did it take a bite out of crime? Or whatever the goal was. It's kind of a management by objectives thing. So Councilman Byrd, you may want to say something later on. Let's move on to District 9, Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. Pretty much everybody's, we're in agreement on the exact same thing when it comes to the safer streets, our growing economy. Here, I've got it listed there. And we've been talking about these issues throughout history. And we have to find a better way to address every issue in every district, right? With the funds that we do have, but I think we have to make things a priority and go ahead and do it. Even if we do specific target investment in things in my area, my seniors are really concerned about crime, and safety for me is just, it's more than just about public safety being about the police department. It's about, the lights, our sidewalks, beautifying our area, giving our communities a sense of pride, and that we're just not thrown to the side and, addressing the detriments of health. All of that plays a part in our growing economy. You can go to the next slide, as we've pretty much addressed all of that. Stronger neighborhoods is self-explanatory, because we've already addressed all of these issues, and using our funding in a right way to help reduce poverty, because a lot of the grants that we do apply for is to address poverty. and to reduce it in those areas. Like we have to, so everything that we presented and we've talked about, it changes our health behaviors, physical environments, childhood experiences. We're talking about increasing higher incomes, reducing absolute levels of poverty, improving our education systems, and enabling a rise in life expectancies, right? These are the things that we have to concentrate on in order for our city to be a thriving and successful Chattanooga for everybody. It doesn't matter your zip code you reside in, your race, your socioeconomic status, any of those things, because everybody deserves to live in a community where they can work, live, and play. Everybody does. And when I use the term underserved, because I do use it a lot, I'm meaning that the lack of resources that's coming into our communities. And as I drive through each one of our communities, we can recognize those communities off top that's underserved, have lack of resources in them. And particularly a lot of those areas of people that are Black and brown people that live in those pockets. And we can no longer refuse to not address these issues, because everybody deserves a fair opportunity in our city, right? And if we continue, everybody want to live in a city where the downtown is booming and fun and exciting to go. But if we have all of those same resources and that funness for everybody to come to everybody's district, everybody's community is thriving, right? And then also we talk about home ownership and those things, which is a great gateway to wealth, but that's an individual thing. And then it also has to do with your credit. So having those financial wellness classes to educate our community members of the importance of that, and they can make that decision how, they want to become a homeowner, if they want to become an investor, and help improve the conditions in their communities. But we limit ourselves because of our thinking. And I have, gotten my community in the habit to say, use strong adjectives that's improving their conditions, because if we continue to say our communities are not thriving, our communities are poor, and using words, because language and words, that matters, right? So my hope is that if this administration, for this last budget, that we can really implement some things, that the next mayor and administration coming in, they're going to take our concerns serious, and they're saying, I've been to several of these mayor forums, they're saying, hey, we're going to keep the needle moving and address these key issues. But we've heard that over a course of different administrations, and a lot of the same communities continue to not be impacted in a positive way. So I'm thankful for the things that we have taken a chip at to try to improve those areas, but we have a lot of work to do in a lot of these communities, so to move us forward, and so people can have the opportunity for upward mobility. The early learning, most definitely, that needs to start from prenatal on, right? Because parents have to understand the importance of that while the child is growing inside of the womb. And a lot of us here, like, we understand the needs of, a lot of things that we're talking about because we've experienced it, right? Each one of us here will have come from impoverished conditions. We didn't come with a silver spoon in our mouth. We just were able to elevate past those circumstances and giving back to our communities because we understand the need firsthand. And we can no longer put a Band-Aid on it, no longer. So that's my take on it. And one last thing, I'm hopeful that, maybe our mayor will give the opportunity to come address our city council on the importance of his very last budget. And then also that the incoming mayor and the administration will work alongside the city council members from the beginning of the process to the end. Like, we shouldn't have to negotiate and surrender our communities, because if we don't agree with something, everybody community deserve to have fair and equitable funding.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a strong finish. Nicole, can you bring up the council, please? Take down the screen. That was super, you all. Thank you very, very much. It was interesting that many of us had the same concerns about equity, about homelessness, about paving, I could go on and on. Councilman Ledford.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for walking us through this process. I think this is the process that this council and future councils need to adopt on a regular basis. And I think we need to make this permanent ahead of the budget preparation so that administration, whoever they are, actually has an opportunity to hear from us on record in a public meeting the concerns that we hear from constituents in our districts. And I want to applaud you for bringing this forum to the public realm, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks to all of you. You really came through. I was hoping it would be as wonderful as you came through with, and now we have a written record to go forward to whomever. We also promised some discussion on this, and now's the time to do it. Councilman Gilbert.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Since majority of us, we all agree on a lot of subjects, could we not prioritize these subjects together? Since I think road paving was the #1 thing for everybody. And that way we can kind of give to the new administration, also to the new council, that these are the #1 things that all nine have said they would like to see in the next particular budget.
What I was planning on doing once we finish this today is kind of bringing all the information together, prioritizing, if you will, and then sending it out to you all to make sure you agree, because you agree on an awful lot. And then offering that not only to the current administration, but to any candidate. And we've got 2 of them here who want to be part of that kind of discussion. So thank you. I will spend the next few days gathering the salient issues, and with your approval, pass those on. Are there any other comments, discussion, concerns? You pretty much said it all. Gosh, I'm proud to be a part of this group. Anything else before we call a halt to this and call time until 3:30? Mr. Chair, do you have anything before 3:30? Is there any kind of an attorney-client meeting that has to take place?
Ma'am, to my knowledge, we have no other business till 3:30 this afternoon.
Thank you, my friends. You've done a fantastic job. I'll be back with you. We are adjourned till 3:30.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
See you
Thank
then.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.